It was supposed to be an ordinary morning, calm and without surprises. A couple had decided to meet at a small restaurant, hoping they could finally talk things over in a calmer way. Sitting across the table, the girl, visibly tired of everything, asked Proto when he was finally going to change his life. She wanted to know how long he planned to keep wasting time working in such a shabby place, only part-time, for such a small salary. The boy, clearly uncomfortable, replied that this was not really a part-time job, but rather training while he prepared himself for the business he dreamed of opening in the future. He told her that he was saving every cent. But the girl, impatient, questioned him further, asking when exactly he would put this so-called plan into action. She wondered if he would only do something when he turned 30, and if until then, they wouldn't have anything real together. No traveling, no house, nothing. Finally, she sighed and asked what the point was of living in such a ridiculous way. The word struck Proto hard, and now he was also running out of patience. He thought to himself that he had no idea what traveling had to do with their discussion, but out loud he asked her what exactly she was doing to help them prosper. Irritated, he threw a bunch of harsh words at her. The girl had no answer and didn't even know where to hide her embarrassment. Feeling cornered, she ended up giving him a push. That was when Proto, losing all control, told her that his life goals were not filled with despair and meaningless actions like hers. He demanded to know if she didn't think it was cruel to belittle all his efforts, complain about everything he had done, and use that only as an excuse to finally break up with him. Looking straight into her eyes, he told her to just say it clearly once and for all. The girl then admitted she had been talking about their relationship with people at her job and that maybe she had been getting along too well with someone she met recently. Proto froze at the confession, while she suddenly exploded, hitting the table and asking what he would do about it. She said it was shameful that while other girls dated ambitious men, she was stuck with someone who only studied a little, worked as a waiter, and still dared to dream of running a big business with such a miserable salary. Proto snapped back, asking if she had ever once caused such drama over something small just to fight with him. He questioned what her plan for life was, what exactly she would do to change things, and reminded her that waiting for something better without effort was nothing more than greed. Then he asked if she really thought he was the one who was wrong. More irritated than ever, she shouted that every time they talked, it ended with her feeling like someone without morals, like money was the only thing she cared about. Half mocking, Proto answered that this was exactly what she was doing right now. In the end, she revealed her true face. Without thinking twice, the girl threw soda in his face, calling him names, and asking how he could treat her so harshly. He told her that if she wanted to leave, she should just forget about him. He didn't care anymore. Completely humiliated, he sat there in the restaurant, his face dripping, cursing her silently in his thoughts. Then suddenly his phone rang over and over. He already had a bad feeling about what was coming. Talking with a colleague, he found out the bitter truth. She had always dreamed of marrying someone rich, a lawyer or a doctor. She believed that because she had studied a little, she deserved something better. His friend explained that she had been invited several times to blind dates with powerful hunters, and that Proto couldn't even compare to one of them. Hearing this left Proto broken, weighed down by the miserable reality he lived in. But before he could say anything else, something strange happened. Out of nowhere, a deafening explosion shook the place, strong enough to break down a wall. Both he and his friend were thrown to the floor. Confused, Proto wondered what in the world was happening. Realizing it was a rift, he shouted that no one had predicted it, so its sudden appearance made no sense at all. This was definitely a bad sign. A rift that nobody could foresee was something new, and new meant terrifying. He rushed to his friend, shaking him and shouting for him to wake up. But just as he spoke, a terrifying monster appeared before him. His heart sank in terror. Standing there was nothing less than a star-class gorilla shark. Towering at nearly 3 meters, the creature's overwhelming presence shattered any hope. Proto collapsed inside, panicking as he asked himself what he could possibly do. Running was impossible. How could he abandon his best friend, his brother and everything? No, he couldn't leave him behind. He promised himself he would protect Yang at any cost, even if the cost was his life. But staring at the monster, he knew the truth. He could never defeat it. His body trembled, yet he tried to stand firm. The beast grabbed him by the head, lifting him with terrifying ease. Hanging in the air, Proto screamed for it to let go, but the creature only glared back at him. Despair ate away at him and he begged himself for a solution. He didn't want to die there, not like this. Suddenly, right in front of him, a strange window appeared. Completely confused, he asked himself what it meant. Displayed clearly was a message with only one instruction: press the button. His mind raced with questions. What would happen if he pressed it? What if he didn't? While he hesitated, the monster's jaws opened, ready to swallow him whole. He realized that if he didn't act, he would die anyway. With no other option, he pressed the button, waiting desperately to see what would happen. But instead of hope, fear filled him. His body stopped responding, not even a single muscle moving. He thought, in despair, that maybe this was truly his end. The monster raised its arm, preparing a deadly strike, while Proto cursed himself for pressing a button without knowing what it did. He shouted the name of the option that had appeared on the screen, begging that at least his death would not be so ridiculous and humiliating. Then, without warning, his unmoving body blocked the monster's strike. Shock filled his mind. It was as if he were a puppet being controlled by someone else. He couldn't understand, but somehow his body was fighting back on its own. Slowly, he was released from the beast's grip, stunned as he realized he was now trading blows, almost equally with the monster. Something he had never even dreamed of was now happening right in front of him. The boy, almost without realizing it, launched a counterattack with a sharp kick that sent the monster flying far away. That strike landed with such precision it was as if his entire body had been trained for this moment. The feeling left by the blow was indescribable, something no one, not even his enemies, could fully explain. But immediately a troubling thought struck the prota's mind. Would the hunters come after him as well? After all, if he left the monsters behind for them, he could carry his best friend Dario in his arms and escape from there. Yet his relief quickly turned to dread when he saw the creature suddenly rising again. His body refused to move, frozen in place as if locked by fear. Inside, he wanted nothing more than to run away, but before he could react, the monster leaped at him with brutal speed. Blood surged within him, and somehow he managed to block the attack, driving a powerful kick directly into the beast's mouth. Strike after strike, he unleashed every ounce of strength he had left until, finally, the monster collapsed, unconscious. As soon as the creature hit the ground, the strange high-powered ability within him deactivated. That left Prota both curious and thrilled about this newfound force he carried. But the excitement did not last. Suddenly an overwhelming pain tore through his muscles, as if his body might burst apart at any second. The agony was so intense that darkness overtook him, and the next moment he awoke in a hospital bed, still groggy, his body aching. Slowly his memories returned. He recalled that he had done everything only to protect his best friend. The thought of his companion filled him with panic and worry, and he rose quickly, demanding to know where his brother-like friend was. At that moment, a mysterious woman stood beside him. Though his muscles throbbed in pain, he held still, listening as she introduced herself. She was a deputy general manager from the Special Defense Department, present to inspect the incident and deliver compensation. Calmly, she handed him her business card, saying he could call her if needed. The boy thanked her, though his curiosity pushed him to ask whether his father had any connection with hunters. She confirmed that such matters would be covered during his military training. She added that the government would take responsibility for all damages caused, including hospital fees and repairs to Yank's shop, which had been destroyed during the battle. Then she handed him the compensation documents. Still shaken, Prota asked about his friend, desperate to know if he was safe. The woman reassured him. Dario had only fainted from shock and was unharmed. Relief washed over him. The woman then urged him to review the documents carefully, explaining that hunters receive rewards based on the monster's rank. The papers contained details of his compensation. But when he read the numbers, disappointment hit him. Only 500,000 won. Frustrated, he muttered that it felt like robbery, considering he had risked his life. The woman, keeping her sinister smile, reminded him that rewards followed strict regulations according to monster level and hunter standards. Still, she revealed another surprise. The monkey shark he defeated was now his property. He could sell it through the hunter's market. Since he had no license, they created a temporary account for him, transferring ownership of the beast. Preparing to leave, she asked if he had any final questions. Prota quickly checked the account. The carcass of a level 2 monster held low market value, something she had already hinted at. He grumbled that it was too little compared to the danger he faced. She only smiled, saying that reality worked in such ways, though one never knew what surprises awaited. As soon as she left, Prota sighed and complained. Everything she had explained felt even more confusing. After all, he was not truly a hunter. How was he supposed to deal with the hunter market? Yet suddenly he remembered the strange option he had activated during the fight. Checking again, he was shocked. The mysterious window with the button still existed. That meant it had been real. But why was the window still active? His head swirled with questions until exhaustion won, and he decided to wait until morning to test if it had all been his imagination. When daylight came, he set out to check the monster's true value. He did not expect much since the beast was only rank 2. But when he searched, the results startled him. 4.5 million won, about 17,000 reis. For a rank 2 creature, that was acceptable though not extraordinary. Then he found another listing. A monster of the same rank priced at 600 million won, roughly 2.8 million reis. The difference was shocking. The expensive one was alive. He remembered the woman's words. A dead carcass was cheap, but it was worth confirming on his own. With a racing heart, he realized the monster he captured was still alive. At that moment, Prota could hardly believe it. He had actually secured a living specimen. Jumping from the bed with joy, he questioned if he was dreaming or if he had truly stumbled upon such fortune. Later, he confirmed the reality. Creatures alive were nearly impossible to capture. It was considered almost a suicidal task. The price of living monsters skyrocketed, 1.5 times, sometimes even more, than their usual worth. That was why the buyer's offer stunned him. For the beast he brought in, he would receive 420 million won, about 1.5 million reis. He had practically won the lottery overnight. After sealing the deal, Prota thanked the woman while struggling to comprehend the massive sum now sitting in his account. Dazed, he wandered off, later sipping coffee while calculating the taxes that would eat into his fortune. Even so, he could not help but reflect on how strange it all felt. After 9 long years of effort, he had earned less than 100 million won, yet with a single captured monster he had gained 300 million at once. He kept talking to himself, answering that earning a lot of money was wonderful, yet it felt as if he had lost something important. It was almost like he had drifted away from his true purpose in life. In the blink of an eye, just like so many others who suddenly become rich, everything turned into a game without fair play, losing its thrill completely. The question that refused to leave the protagonist's mind was whether he should finally use that wealth to open the restaurant he had dreamed of for years, or if he should give everything to become a successful hunter, gaining even more fortune. What drove him nearly insane was the memory of his ex-wife's words that still pierced him deeply. They made him furious as if she kept haunting him. He whispered and thought that she should stop tormenting him, and only after he began his journey as a hunter would this restlessness fade. After all, money was indeed wonderful, and becoming a respected, well-paid hunter should not be so difficult. Standing there, he made a vow aloud, swearing that she could wait forever because he would never collapse again. The very next day, while training, he was still unsettled by the strange fact that the option button, which used to glow blue, now appeared gray. He reflected that this world could not possibly be normal. It confused him even more, because when it first appeared it had been blue, but after the hospital incident it turned gray. He wondered if the reason for this change was the presence of an enemy. The truth, however, was that he had received far more than just a strong ability. He realized he could literally sense danger nearby. After countless questions and doubts, he decided to test it on his own. Looking at the punching bag, he declared aloud that it was his enemy. Fortune smiled on him in that instant. The option turned blue again. He celebrated, uncovering the secret. The skill was more than just detecting enemies, it made him define what the enemy was. That made the ability incredibly useful. The punching bag, however, suffered greatly. The young man deactivated the option just for fun, wanting to make a kind of test drive. He believed he had multiplied the damage of each strike, and within minutes he collapsed on the floor, fainting from exhaustion. The reality was that the power demanded far more from his frail body than he had imagined, and the pain was unbearable. Still, if he wanted to understand this mysterious ability, he needed to learn how to deal with the muscle pain it brought. He thought that perhaps just a few stretches would be enough to ease it. As he kept training, he understood that the power activated whenever he declared it, and deactivated once the enemy was defeated. This was not a bad thing at all, because it prevented serious consequences. After long hours of practice, the protagonist was finally ready to embrace this power. Looking firmly at his reflection in the mirror, he told himself with determination that the time had come to become a true demon hunter. Now, with his strength prepared, he had to register for the government's program, which recruited new hunters. But first, he had to pass the trials testing his strength, knowledge, and survival skills. Breathing deeply, he thought about how fortunate he was to have already passed the physical test with just one attempt. Now, with everything in place, he felt ready for the challenge. Although he still had some worries, he knew his self-targeting ability would not let him down. Without it, he might not even be able to move properly, but thanks to this power, he could push far beyond his limits. He reflected that if he used the auto-target on the punching bag, the object would shatter in an instant. That difference helped him separate what came from his own strength and what came from the skill. Even so, he admitted that he had no way of knowing if this gift would remain forever, so he should prepare for the possibility of losing it. Carrying those thoughts, he headed into training once more. The next day, the results of the physical tests were finally revealed. The evaluators called out the names of those who had been selected and validation began. The protagonist thought to himself that it had already been 4 months since he chose to become a hunter. He had worked tirelessly for this, and he hoped that at the very least he had scored enough to pass. When his name, Yu Sing, was announced, he froze, filled with anxiety and fear of failure. Taking his results in hand, his heart nearly burst with relief. To his astonishment, he had scored 98 points out of 100. He remembered that the first time he tried, he had managed only 63. In 4 months, he had improved by 35 points, placing him at the threshold of a level 2 hunter's license. That put him close to the strength of the gorilla shark he once defeated. He could not hold back his happiness, for he realized that with discipline and constant effort, his dream was within reach. Still, the surprise was not over. The examiner called his name again, announcing that he would be placed in a special class for the final license examination at the end of the year. They reassured him, saying he would receive more details during the seminars and classes. Hearing this, the entire group was shocked. The protagonist was as well, wondering how he had entered a special class without even reaching the maximum score. Soon, in the training room, an instructor introduced himself as King's Book. He explained that some were there for the first time, while others had already been through it, but all were gathered for the same purpose, to prepare for the special class. He reminded them that they had 4 months to train and that their goal should be to pass the final test. Yet not everyone had achieved the necessary results. One student had not even reached 100 points. Irritated, the instructor scolded him harshly, then added that they should not waste time comparing themselves with others, but focus on their own progress. A mocking student laughed arrogantly, boasting that he himself had scored 135 points, well above the limit. The protagonist realized the insult was aimed at him, but he could not understand why that fool found it amusing. When he turned his eyes forward again, the skill window appeared, active. He wondered why, since no enemy was close. Looking more carefully, he noticed a rat under the water nearby, and then it made sense. He decided not to waste time with that arrogant student. He had more important things to do, like mastering his ability quickly to finally become a respected hunter. The special class, he soon learned, was divided into 4 parts: mandatory physical training, combat techniques, survival practice, and the art of exploration. Beyond the rift, security and efficiency were always questioned, yet this training also focused on mastering weapons. It was explained that these were the most effective tools in the world against monsters, allowing them to be defeated more easily. And finally, it was about fully assuming control over one's role, because after all, someone did not become a great hunter just by trying to kill a few monsters. A true hunter was the one who had total control over the battle. The instructor made it clear that the monster itself determined whether one had that right. He reminded everyone that enrolling in the academy meant choosing the path of becoming a hunter, and he asked the class why they wished to pursue it. One of the students responded, saying the answer was obvious, since he had heard that hunters made a lot of money. The instructor smiled at this and spoke with honesty, explaining that while it was true, the matter was far more complex. He asked if they really knew where that money came from. To make it clear, he wrote on the board for everyone to see, showing that most of a hunter's income came from the remains of the monsters they defeated. He then questioned whether they realized that a destroyed monster, like the one shown in the image, could bring them no profit at all. The classroom fell into silence, and the students looked uneasy, unable to reply. The instructor concluded that this was precisely why his lesson was important. If they wanted to live rich lives, they needed to train in ways that would preserve the monster's body, protecting its value. For that purpose, they would begin physical training with the help of a special dummy. He pointed at what looked like a sandbag, explaining that this figure would serve as their opponent, since it had the ability to recover from most damage and rise again as if nothing had happened. Still, not everything would be simple, because unlike a real sandbag, this figure would fight back. The students shivered in fear upon hearing this. The instructor asked who would go first. Without hesitation, Kong stepped forward, claiming he wanted to be the first. The instructor commented that he was indeed a student with impressive physical points and potential to become the greatest hunter in the world. Kong landed a powerful punch on the dummy while mocking it, calling it weak and unworthy, claiming it could not withstand even a single blow from him. Yet his mocking tone turned to shock when the dummy blocked his attack effortlessly. He tried again, unleashing a flurry of blows, but none of them were effective. Furious, Kong insulted the dummy, shouting and losing his temper completely, calling it worthless and ridiculous. The instructor, unimpressed, interrupted and said that Kong had missed the purpose of the exercise. He reminded him that the goal of the training was to preserve the monster's body, not to destroy it. Kong froze in embarrassment, unable to look anyone in the eye. The instructor then told him to step aside and let another volunteer take the ring. As silence spread across the room, the protagonist raised his hand. The instructor looked at him, curious, and asked if he wished to try. Kong protested, asking for another chance, claiming he had not yet reached his limit, but the instructor, irritated, told him he had caused enough disruption. He ordered him to stay quiet and allow the next participant to proceed. The protagonist climbed into the ring, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. He observed the dummy carefully and noticed it had already recovered completely, just as the instructor had described. When the fight began, the dummy attacked quickly, but the protagonist dodged gracefully, leaving it untouched. Students whispered in awe at how smooth his movement appeared. Shortly after, with a clean strike, he managed to knock the dummy down, leaving everyone stunned. While looking at the fallen figure, he whispered to himself that efficiency was the key, and that the move had been surprisingly easy. Still, he wondered if he too would be disqualified just like Kong. The instructor, however, was impressed and declared that his move had been perfect. He explained that the protagonist had discovered the dummy's weak point and had struck it cleanly, almost as though he could capture a real monster intact. Recognizing his effort, the instructor emphasized that hunters needed such precision if they hoped to become wealthy. He revealed that the dummy had been configured at a basic level, making it easier, but then asked if the protagonist wished to try a higher difficulty. Without hesitation, the boy agreed, saying that even if he failed, at least he would have given his best. The instructor smiled faintly and adjusted the dummy to level 2. The protagonist reflected silently, comparing it to the monkey shark he had fought before, realizing that the challenge was now balanced with his own current level. Confident, he prepared himself. Activating his ability, he thought that memorizing as many movements as possible would be key. The dummy lunged at him, faster and stronger than before. He dodged just in time, though it made his heart race. Despite the dummy's increase in strength, he managed to block its strikes, reminding himself that his ability gave him the advantage. When he counterattacked, he brought it down once more with a single blow. The class gasped in disbelief, questioning who this boy really was. Some murmured that it could not be real. He had not even reached the limit of 100 points, yet he had defeated a level 2 dummy in a single strike. Jealousy filled Kang's mind, who thought it was all a trick between the instructor and the protagonist. Meanwhile, Sang approached the boy with a cheerful smile, congratulating him, and admitted that he had been far more talented than expected. Blushing, the protagonist lowered his head, thanking the instructor for the kind words. The rest of the students applauded loudly, impressed by his performance during his very first training session. When asked if he had studied martial arts before, he admitted that he had never learned any particular style, but had spent all his time studying and practicing alone. After calming the class and clearing their doubts, the instructor requested that the protagonist remain with him for a while longer. After classes ended, he knew it was the right time to talk. During the conversation, Kim asked him how things were going, since he had already been there for a few weeks. Kim guessed that he was probably keeping up with the levels and training without too much difficulty. The boy confirmed this, explaining that even though he did not really understand why he had been placed in their special class, he was following everything and felt very satisfied with the lessons. Hearing this, Kim looked at him and said that the reason was quite obvious. In his eyes, Yang had more than enough ability to be part of the special class. Looking straight into the boy's eyes, Kim admitted that a very tempting offer had appeared and asked if he was curious about what it was. After their long discussion, the other students who had also been accepted into the program were celebrating endlessly, thrilled to have achieved their dreams. One student noticed that the protagonist was not drinking with the others and asked him why. The boy calmly explained that he would not drink until he had completed all the stages of training, since a few still remained. A cheerful girl nearby, smiling brightly, told him that she had seen what he did in the ring earlier, adding that it was really impressive. Soon after, she asked if he already had any plans for what to do once he finally obtained his hunter's license. Her question caught him off guard, surprising both him and the girl herself when he admitted honestly that he had never even thought about that possibility before. Still smiling, the girl kept the conversation going, asking if he had already received any offers, since everyone knew how talented he was. The moment she mentioned the word offer, his mind immediately returned to the night when the instructor had spoken with him about something that could change his future. Kim had said it was an incredible opportunity and that he should at least hear it out since there was nothing to lose. When asked again about it, the boy finally revealed that he intended to stay by the instructor's side for now and, later on, open his own hunter agency. That was why Kim had been searching for famous hunters to join him. However, the problem was that the best ones were already signed by well-known agencies. Because Yang had caught his attention, Kim explained that he wanted to invite him to join the agency he planned to create in the future. Surprised, Yang asked the instructor if that meant he was being recognized as a hunter already. Kim replied firmly that yes, because he showed the traits of a skilled hunter. Still doubtful, the boy questioned why he had been chosen, since he was not officially a hunter yet and his points were probably low. Kim smiled and explained that it was not his points that mattered but rather the strength of his body and the constancy of his training. The instructor added that Yang's physical balance was flawless, the result of a body trained with no negligence, and even declared that he had the perfect physique, capable of representing the nation internationally, at the very least. Hearing this, Yang wondered silently if the reason his body had become so perfect was because of the way he had pushed himself during training using his special ability. Kim continued, explaining that the movements Yang had shown in class had demonstrated the full potential of his current body. Laughing lightly, the instructor told him that this was why he had made such an offer, even joking that it was like the love at first sight. Still, he reminded him that until he passed the final test, he was not yet an official hunter, only someone with promise. But if he accepted the proposal, the issue would solve itself. Yang was confused by this statement and asked what exactly Kim meant. With a knowing look, Kim pulled out a paper and revealed something shocking. It contained the details of the final test, information so secret that even the examiners did not know it. The instructor explained that this was the official hunter license examination, under government protection, and that no one else would ever have access to such content. After giving a long explanation, Kim finally asked Yang if he would accept the offer. Smiling widely, he stretched out his hand, saying that if Yang agreed, he would not just be a hunter, but the hunter above all others. Yang, lost in his own thoughts, was suddenly pulled back when the girl nearby called his name several times, asking if he was listening. Embarrassed, he apologized, saying he had been distracted. She teased him gently, telling him not to daydream so much. While they talked, some students around the protagonist began to ask about his training, curious about his routine. Yang replied simply that it was just basic practice. However, one of the boys quickly interrupted, pointing out that he had given the same answer when he effortlessly defeated that 2-star mannequin earlier. He accused Yang of lying, saying no one could do such a thing with only basic training. Frustrated, the boy slammed the table and accused Yang of hiding private lessons, even suggesting that he must come from a wealthy background. Irritated, Kong shouted that unlike others, Yang was a true genius who succeeded without needing to pay for extra help. Turning to the girl, Kong asked if Yang was really the kind of person who only liked to show off. Calmly and politely, Yang told Kong that he was sorry if it seemed that way and asked for forgiveness. But Kong snapped, yelling that he had not asked for an apology and demanded to know if Yang thought this was all some kind of joke. The mood dropped instantly. Concerned, Yang stood up to leave before things escalated. But as he moved away, Kong grabbed him by the collar, shouting that he should never ignore him again. Though Yang did not fight back, Kang's strength was enough to humiliate him in front of everyone. Still, Yang's patience snapped, and he glared fiercely at Kong, shouting his name. He said that he truly wanted to understand why Kong was doing this, why he was provoking him into a fight now of all times. He added that if Kong really was the same age as him, he should think carefully before challenging someone he could not defeat. With a chilling look, Yang's eyes burned with intensity, and Kong froze, trembling in fear. Though Yang released him without even laying a hand on him, the moment left everyone stunned. The silence was heavy as they watched Kong collapse in shock. The boy who had mocked Yang earlier tried to laugh nervously but ended up admitting that perhaps he had gone too far. While retrieving it, the protagonist began to recall the moment when the one who had offered him that deal had stood up, thanked him, and then refused, leaving everyone completely surprised by such a bold move. Even Sang bought into it but tried to express that he was deeply disappointed. He asked if the boy truly believed he had a chance to become a real hunter, offering the opportunity right then and there. But the boy turned and replied that he had never thought of taking an easy path to become a hunter. Reflecting on it, he realized that this was precisely why he had made that decision, to become a hunter relying entirely on his own skills, pushing himself without depending on anyone else in the world. After everything he had endured, he wanted to prove to himself what he was truly capable of. That was exactly why he had walked out of the room. He had even made a call to Chico himself, informing him that he had finally found the perfect candidate they had been searching for all these years. When they called to confirm, the instructor asked, surprised, whose voice it was. The response was simple, just a rookie boy who had truly become a hunter. Even then, there was no doubt that this rookie could potentially become the best among all hunters in the world, leaving Sharo completely stunned, unable to believe it. Time passed, and with only a month left until the final test, the boy knew he had to prepare thoroughly. He focused on discovering ways to overcome his weaknesses, but suddenly, while planning in his mind, something caught his attention. A yellow squad appeared right in front of him. The real problem was that he had nothing to put there, so he had no idea what that thing was for. Accidentally, he touched his bottle to the yellow board, and immediately the bottle was kicked along with it. Seeing that it was indeed an item, he realized he needed to learn how to use it efficiently. A kind of image prompt appeared above the slot, instructing him that he should start by fishing occasionally. He looked at the slot again to see if it really worked, and to his surprise, it did. However, the water in the bottle was pressurized, which made him wonder if there was a way to control the force, so it wouldn't just shoot down his throat like that. Thankfully, it was at least much easier to understand. Looking at the current state of the bottle, he knew he had to be careful. He began to ponder how to make the most of it, even though it initially had no obvious use. He reflected on everything and, seeing that it worked, he decided to test it with other items. This would be extremely useful for him once he became a hunter and even for the final test. Soon, he gathered a handful of different things nearby, while a message appeared explaining the rules of this exotic item. In short, it would be extremely useful for him. It was like having a bag to carry his items, but unlike normal ones, it wouldn't bother him or be visible to anyone nearby. With this ability, he could save a lot of time while preparing or eating food. Sang had a smile on his face, realizing that with this power he could feed himself without consuming the duration of any skill, improving recovery time and efficiency. Finally, after a month of intense training, the big day arrived, the hunter license test, the final exam. He waited as the instructor arrived, and the students stretched after a long journey to reach the location. Only the new favorite, the protagonist, was missing. When he stepped out of the van, the girl ran over, curious. After so much training, he had managed to make his body even stronger. He looked at Kang, who was clearly irritated, almost as if provoked. Sang simply told the girl that everything he had achieved was thanks to a combination of training, discipline, and nutrition. He added that the place was even more intense than expected. It turned out that someone in the audience was also a talent scout, sparking everyone's curiosity. The explanation was that although smaller companies or agencies were weak compared to larger ones when it came to recruitment, they never sat idly by. They always awaited the results of the hunter test to recruit new talent as quickly as possible. Everyone was left completely amazed. The instructor confirmed that despite everything, the crowd was larger than expected. The talent scout immediately made it a priority, rushing forward wildly, trying to attract attention. At that moment, a red Ferrari appeared at high speed, and two people jumped out from it. The crowd screamed repeatedly, shocked by the spectacle. The boy realized that the test had just become much more intense. Hacker, a solo hunter known for being the best in his category, had arrived. Known for his extraordinary skills and success, he was accompanied by his younger sister, Maria, who was also taking the hunter exam. The rumors about her were true. The siblings exchanged a few words. Hacker asked if she was nervous, and the girl, full of confidence, replied that she wasn't. She only needed to watch as the results were already determined. Hacker, surprised, asked if she was really certain, sensing some tension. She assured him, calmly explaining that the test would not be a challenge for her at all. Hacker noted how confident she seemed, attributing it to her skills. She confirmed it, smiling as they approached the van. The instructor asked Hacker if his sister and the others had finished the test, and he confirmed that they were indeed all ranked as third class. Unfortunately, he had to watch them, and the guys were growing increasingly irritated by the girl's arrogance. When she muttered, asking if she had really said they were all third class, the protagonist's team immediately felt guilty, knowing his little sister had an extremely sharp tongue. He silently prepared to apologize on her behalf, feeling both embarrassed and worried. After everyone had calmed down, he finally noticed Ian's presence. His jaw dropped as he realized someone so powerful was observing him. "Is he really a blood?" someone asked from behind, eyes wide. The protagonist was being watched by an incredible hunter, who inquired about Shurat's being there. The speed at which the hunter approached left the protagonist shocked. He could barely sense the arrival. The hunter solo was thrilled and surprised by the protagonist's reception, exclaiming how amazing it was, noting the impressive blood aura. How did he get here so fast? The protagonist thought, reflecting on how the person arrived almost invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, Hunter Solo asked if he needed anything, and the protagonist's reply only increased the hunter's curiosity. Observing the beast up close left him completely in awe. Why is this person approaching me so casually? He wondered, feeling a bit awkward. The stranger admitted it might seem unusual, but explained he simply wanted to examine the protagonist's body. Everyone else felt embarrassed, unsure where to look, while the protagonist's sister grumbled quietly. She felt like she wanted to embarrass him herself. The stranger reassured them, insisting there was no hidden motive. He was genuinely intrigued by the protagonist's physique. I just want to understand how Yang trained him, he clarified. The protagonist, confused, asked what he meant, but the hunter Solo was ecstatic, eager to study the protagonist's rapid physical growth. This is incredible, the hunter muttered, analyzing every detail. The protagonist's instructor, observing quietly, felt a bit unsettled. He hadn't anticipated anyone noticing the training secrets. When asked, the instructor awkwardly explained that some things were meant to remain undisclosed. The protagonist, puzzled, received the instructor's contact card, who suggested reaching out later to discuss training methods. Reflecting on the remarkable regimen, the protagonist was awed. Meanwhile, his little sister scolded him, embarrassed and angry, while he shouted encouragement to everyone, hoping his friends would do well in the final exam. The protagonist, still surprised by the encounter, asked if that's how the hunter always behaved. The hunter admitted he didn't know for sure, describing the man as eccentric. It was time to begin the exam, and the protagonist now had other concerns. Blood asked what had just happened and why it occurred. His sister reminded him to stay alert if he wanted to achieve top ranks. The operator announced the field exam was about to start, explaining that candidates would face monsters in a randomly selected terrain resembling real environments. The protagonist realized medical staff were present for emergencies, feeling a mix of shock and reassurance. The operator continued, explaining that past exams had seen rising danger levels, with smarter monsters causing more casualties. To address this, the organization introduced the strongest, most intelligent monster yet, hiding it in the jungle. Candidates were to hunt for at least 72 hours, capturing each other alive while avoiding harm. They're using modified basic tools for the test, the operator clarified. The minimal protection allowed some absorption of attacks, but once a limit was reached, the user would be stunned by electric shock. This meant candidates had to think carefully about capturing others while staying alive. The protagonist reflected on the purpose of the strange suits he had been given, understanding their role in the exam. Seeing his sister, he activated his self-defense skills automatically, feeling concerned about why she was so prepared and composed for such a chaotic scenario. As she wondered why this was a warning of sorts after seeing the body, a sleepy realization hit her. This ridiculous person was far stronger than she had expected. Then, completely out of nowhere, she understood that whoever managed to earn points for this hunt, someone who hunted high-value targets, could surpass all the points accumulated by others throughout the entire exam. She wasn't foolish, and she quickly concluded that wasting time hunting random candidates was pointless. It was far better to focus on those with the most strength. After all, only the strongest people would pass this test within 72 hours. Upon entering the battlefield, she was stunned by the sight of the jungle. It felt entirely real, the blue sky above, the wind brushing against her, even stone obstacles and trees, just like a true wilderness. She also knew that expending all her energy recklessly would be foolish, potentially wasting her strength for the future. The test required careful strategy. First, she needed to survey the area and conserve energy, only using it in measured amounts. Unfortunately for some candidates, her unlucky approach collided with the protagonist himself. He immediately activated his self-defense skill, and before anyone could react, he had incapacitated his target with a single blow. The person hit the ground, fully conscious yet completely overwhelmed. Observing him more closely, she noticed the panic in his eyes, his first real battle, though to him, it wasn't exactly the first time. He had faced plenty of real opponents before, but now, dressed in his combat gear, even empty skirmishes had become more meaningful. He still had just a single point, yet he was determined to pursue victory with unwavering focus. Meanwhile, in the monitoring room, many people watched the battles, analyzing candidates for any rule violations. A young man remarked that candidate levels were rising constantly and wondered if this was an unusual change. A woman explained that the first phase of any change was always chaotic. The chief operator added that he should have learned not to announce anything unusual in tests like these. After their discussion, a young girl commented to the young man that watching the exam didn't seem fun. He awkwardly admitted that it was a rather strange hobby. Soon, they saw Lei Jack's younger sister fighting two opponents simultaneously. He couldn't believe his eyes. The solo hunter, so young yet so capable, dispatched both with remarkable ease. Watching her, the operator noted her incredible potential. She was already leading in points. Shocked, the young man asked if that was truly her raw power. According to rumors, she had made an agreement with the organization to awaken her abilities early, though he found such claims hard to believe. Another rumor suggested her older brother, Lydia, had trained her, explaining her ability to take on multiple strong opponents even in her unrefined state. The young man was astounded and finally understood why such rumors circulated about her. All the monitors had been focusing on Lei, ignoring the other candidates entirely. This caused laughter among them as everyone expected such an outcome. In truth, everyone had assumed she was a complete novice, but clearly they had underestimated her. Meanwhile, the protagonist, lying on the battlefield, reflected on how his best student had ended up in this situation. Though following instructions perfectly, he knew that gaining experience here would strengthen his body even further. The instructor, King Murchark, pretended not to know the identity of the person in front of his students to avoid making anyone uncomfortable, which the young man understood and agreed was appropriate. After seeing the live camera feed, he realized just how incredible his sister's skills were. Despite his own accomplishments, he admitted that his sister's abilities were remarkable, and he intended to support her as best as he could, aware that guiding her wasn't easy. The solo hunter asked the instructor if that person truly intended to teach some kind of skill. The conversation revealed that the young man had no particular skill to offer, and he quickly apologized for asking such a question. The instructor reassured him and continued monitoring the exam, observing how the students fared. The solo hunter found the whole situation intriguing, curious to see who would rank highest in the final evaluation. Back on the battlefield, the protagonist had only just begun, but within the last 24 hours, only the strongest remained. He knew he had to endure until the end to survive the test. After 68 hours, he discussed the final stretch with another candidate, who mentioned that only 4 hours remained. They speculated about a particularly skilled novice who seemed almost absurdly talented, though they doubted he could reach them in time. Confident that the old guard would triumph, they continued monitoring. Meanwhile, the protagonist took a moment to find ways to maintain his energy, reinforcing his gear with materials he found nearby. 17 small jungle plants provided enough calories to sustain him. Everything he had learned in training proved invaluable. He could even set up natural defenses using only jungle materials. Maintaining even a single energy snack was difficult, but his skills in energy management allowed him to survive longer. Suddenly, the protagonist felt a wave of weakness and dizziness. He realized he had spent so many hours hunting relentlessly that exhaustion had overtaken him. He couldn't even track how long he had been at it. Now, completely drained, he admitted aloud that all he wanted was to go home and lie in his warm bed.